What is up, heroes? This is Midnight Zero, and welcome to another team building video for the SFL. This is week 3. We're going up against Gary, captain of the Californian Cubones. And yes, we are actually coming off a loss last week, and I've talked about that in an update. And there's some changes to my team. If you haven't seen the change for the roster, the update, please do check that out beforehand. But first, let's get into Gary's team, because he's, like a lot of the other teams, he's got a solid team. And starting the solid team is actually Tapu Lele, which is easily one of the strongest mons of this incoming generation. Look at that solid special attack stat, in addition to, hitting hard with Psychic, and boosted by 50% by that Psychic Surge, Psychic Terrain. So this thing is a monster. It's also really good for preventing priority for late game. And yeah, overall, this thing is a threat that I had a lot of difficulty building around. It can run Scarf, it can run Specs or Life Orb. It just hits really hard. The next mon we've got is Excadrill, which is not too different from last gen, to be honest. It can run a bulky spinner set, it can run Scarf with Mold Breaker to hit Levitate mons, etc. It can run Sand Rush, Life Orb, Adamant. Like it's hit so hard. It's got a solid attack stat, and with a decent amount of bulk in that HP stat. Good typing, it hits fairies hard, and of course it hits hard on the ground side as well, which obviously is a weakness of my team. Next one we got is Volcanion, which, this thing hits hard too. Look at those stats. It's actually really bulky, especially on the defensive side. It hits hard with special attack. It's got Steam Eruption, which is like a Super Scald, and a lot of times these run Extra Belt or Leftovers for a little bit of extra bulk because of its ability, Water Absorb, which gives it essentially a water immunity. It's got a solid typing in addition to 2 great stab moves, Water Fire, Flamethrower, Steam Eruption, and a lot of times you also see it with Scarf or Specs. The next mon we got is Mega Aerodactyl, which is so fast. Look at that blazing 150 speed. That's like Pheromosa levels of speed, in addition to a solid base 135 attack. That said, it doesn't get a lot of attacks that really add much. Its best flying stab is really Aerial Ace, boosted by Tough Claws, and then it's got Stone Edge, which isn't boosted by its ability and has a solid chance of missing, so it's kind of scary. It can run a relatively bulky set, with Sandstorm. I've seen him bring that in the past. It can also run Rocks. It typically gets access to all the Fang type moves, Earthquake, so it's got really good coverage, but none of it is really super strong or super accurate. The next mon we got is Tornadus. Not Tornadus T, of course. So this thing hits hard on the special side. It's typically seen as a special attacker with Life Orb. Gets access to Hurricane, Grass Knots, and usually hidden power. It can Nasty Plot, I think. It can Taunt. It can Tailwind, and that's all it's really known for. It hits hard, and it hits a solid speed tier. It's just barely outspeeding all those 110s. Next one we got is Lycanroc, which is usually seen as a revenge killer, a kind of suicide leader, Focus Sash, Taunt, Toxic, Stealth Rock, or Accelerock, or Stone Edge. It gets access to that, as I mentioned before, priority. But yeah, it's got access to a solid, rock type moves. Stone Edge, of course, always has a chance to miss, but coming off a solid base attack stat, and again, hitting that solid, just above base 110 speed tier, makes it pretty viable for a lead rocker. The next mon we got is Scrafty. I actually really like Scrafty in this meta, especially because of how strong Knockoff is, and this thing takes knockoffs like a champ. It gets access to Shed Skin, which allows it to have the chance to get rid of status at the end of turn. You can run a Rest, Sleep Talk with like Bulk Up, and you can also run a Dragon Dance set, and this thing also has a lot of decent natural bulk, so it's pretty scary in addition to an okay attack set, but he's got great ways of boosting the attack set, and it's pretty difficult to kill, so we'll see. The next mon we got is Electros, which I don't think is too great of a mon. It's got a great move pool. It's got great coverage with Giga Drain, Flamethrower, Volt Switch, Thunderbolt, Knockoff, Iron Tail, bunch of those types of moves. It's electric type, and its ability is Levitate, so it's got no weaknesses and access to so bulk. So yeah, this thing takes hits and can deal out damage pretty well. Its typical set is Assault Vest because of its great move pool, and you can boost its defenses. It's pretty slow, so it is expected to tank hits more so than anything. The next mon we got, Slowking. Now, Slowking is pretty much just barely outclassed by Slowbro. but it's still really solid. It's got a decent special attack stat. It can fire off some nice Scalds, some nice Psy Shocks. It can Calm Mind up. It can run a Trick Room set in, like modest even specs, but also it can run a very defensive set. It's got natural bulk and it's got access to a regenerator, so it can recover a lot more easily. This is one of his few tanks slash pivot mons that I can see him bringing for sure. The next mon he's got is Golisopod, which Gen 7 came around and everyone was fearing Golisopod. Its ability, however, hinders it quite a bit. Emergency exit after it drops below 50%, it's automatically switched out, which means it can't really set up, as I'm sure you encountered in the games itself whenever you battled Guzma. But it's got a solid attack stat. It's really slow and it's pretty weak on the specially defensive side and special side just in general. But it's got a great defensive bulk, and all of its best moves really are priority, whether it's First Impression or Aqua Jet. Or Sucker Punch and the like. I think Golisopod can also get up spikes, if I recall correctly. I'm not 100% sure, but this thing is notable mostly for its priority. The next mon is Garbodor. Garbodor is a mon that I personally love using. Get up Toxic Spikes, get up spikes. It can hit hard with Gunk Shot or Drain Punch. It can use Infestation to infest some mons. It can run Rocky Helmet, max defense, so that, when it's Rocky Helmet and what's it called, Aftermath, you just build up so much damage over time, because Aftermath, if you get killed by a physical contact move, the killer loses 25% of their HP. So yeah, Garbodor could be a really solid physically defensive wall. Then there's Lurantis. I'm not too familiar with Lurantis. It's got decent attack stat. It's really slow and it's got decent bulk and a solid defensive typing. That said, its best ability is Contrary, and it gets the only moves that really take advantage of that is on the special side. So stuff like Leaf Storm, and so that's all I can really see him using. That said, this thing gets revenge killed pretty easily because of its lackluster speed. And then lastly is Unknown. This was kind of a joke draft. I don't expect him to bring this to any match except for as like a trolling move. It's really bad. There's nothing really to expect except for modest choice specs, hidden power psychic coming from this thing. And yeah, that's about it. So there's Unknown. So the first mon I thought to bring, oh, and I should mention actually Z Crystal as well. I don't recall exactly what Z Crystal it was, which means it wasn't really important to his team. He's probably later in the draft. But the first mon that I thought of bringing when I saw his team was Gengar. And so what we're bringing is a really, really hard-hitting Gengar. And even more so than any other week, this week is very much hyper offense. I'm having to cope with having to play hyper offense. Bring a lot of offensive mons, hitting hard, and really having to play aggressively, pull double switches, and predict a lot more than I'm actually really comfortable with. So Gengar is the first of this team. It's got Shadow Ball, Sludge Wave, Thunderbolt, and Dazzling Gleam. So pretty much a whole bunch of coverage. Shadow Ball and Sludge Wave do a ton to Tapu Lele. Shadow Ball to it KOs Offensive Excadrill. Sludge Wave to it KOs Volcanion. T-Bolt OHKOs it, of course, if it's got a little bit more health on it. T-Bolt hits Aerodactyl hard, can't switch that in. T-Bolt hits Tornadus hard. Shadow Ball hits, Lycanroc hard. Really, I mean, any of my moves hit Lycanroc hard. And Dazzling Gleam KOs Scrafty, which is a natural switch in if it's AV, expecting like a Shadow Ball or something like that. And Sludge Wave to it KOs Electros. Shadow Ball hits Slowking hard. And of course, we hit Golisopod hard on the special side. The only thing we don't really hit hard is Garbodor. So Gengar can really rip some holes through his team. The only concern is speed. We don't really outspeed a lot of things. I mean, he's got stuff like Lycanroc and Tornadus Eye, but then the next fastest is Tapu Lele, so I figured I would just outspeed Tapu Lele, and that's why I have the speed investment I do, and spend the rest of the EVs into special attack, and what's left over goes into defense to potentially take Accelerock or Aqua Jet or First Impression, those physical priority type moves. So, yeah, Gengar, I don't know if it's going to sweep, but it's definitely going to make a dent. The next mon we got, though, is Circuitry, and I don't know why I didn't scroll, but Circuitry. This thing is so strong, and I've been trying out a bunch of different sets. I like the Calm Mind set, I like Bulky Leftover, so that I recover as I killing things. But you know what? This thing runs Scarf. On the ladder, and you know, a whole bunch of showdown lives. You'll see it with Scarf because that's probably what it does best, and it's limiting in that, you know, you can only choose one move, and as long as they've got a ground type move or something that resists that, you've got to play really carefully. But Scarf Circuitry does so well. It actually, you'll notice I'm not max speed, and that's because even with max speed, I don't outspeed Mega Aerodactyl, even Scarfed. So I have the speed investment to outspeed Adamant Mega Aerodactyl, because he might not run max speed anticipating, oh, I outspeed everything on his team naturally, and just go for the extra power. So that's why that's there, why that speed is there, and then the leftover goes into HP and defense for those priority moves to hit, what's it called, Stealth Rock numbers and such. Thunderbolt hits everything hard except for Excadrill. I mean, even Lurantis takes a lot from it, and especially if I get a Beast Boost, that's going to do a ton. Volt Switch is there for more for momentum, which is really important on a hyper-offensive team. Energy Ball is there to kind of get some more basic coverage, just hit things just in general harder. I don't have to necessarily play around with, oh, is he going to go into Excadrill to, like, you know, be immune to my electric type attacks. I can just go for Energy Ball, and after a Beast Boost, it does plenty of damage, just like Thunderbolt. So yeah, that's why Energy Ball is there. Ease prediction. And then Dazzling Gleam, lastly, is there just for like a little bit of it's just my last coverage. It hits Scrafty hard in case he brings a, what's it called, an AV Scrafty, and that's like a very common set, so I wouldn't be surprised. And Dazzling Gleam also, depending on what he brings, what's left, can be a sweeping move, you know, if he's still got Excadrill running around, but it's just weakened or something like that. The next mon we've got is the new mon to the team. We got Megazor. Now, I am a little bit concerned about Megazor because depending on Psychic Terrain being up or not, I might not be able to use Bullet Punch, but I'll have to play around that, and I'll have to be extra aware of that. You'll notice I'm running a really bulky set. It's a mix between Spadef and defense. That Impish Nature increases my defense and lowers my special attack, but I got a lot of HP, and basically this mon allows me to take on Adamant Life Orb Excadrill and beat it 1v1, which is really cool. And I can also tank a Psychic. I can tank 2 Psychics from Specs, Modest, Tapu Lele in the Psychic Terrain, which is what I needed. I definitely needed a mon that could do that. U-turn does a lot. I can just pretty much roost up and outstall Psychic Terrain. That said, I do have to worry about Spadef drops and crits if I do that, so I don't know about that, but U-turn is helpful for momentum on a lot of his mons, and with SD, I can set up on, you know, some of his lower mons like Lurantis, Garbodor, Golisopod, even, I don't know, Electros could bring Flamethrower, but maybe even Scrafty, and pretty much sweep towards the end. So this thing is one of my few pivots, kind of. It's a weakened pivot, but it is a pivot nonetheless, and a potential to set up in sweep late game as well, or just put a dent in things to make way for my other mons that can potentially sweep, because pretty much almost every mon on my team can sweep. But the next mon we have is the one mon that I don't expect to really sweep, and that's Drapion. It's an Assault Fest Drapion because I needed something to tank the other hits from Tapu Lele. Tapu Lele, oftentimes if he's running Life Orb or not a choice type move, or a choice move, will run HP Fire specifically for steel types like Megazor, which are common switch-ins to the resisted Psychic. So I wanted something that could tank Moonblast if they try to get fancy with predictions. Also, if it's choice, it prevents it from clicking Psychic all the time, given that I'm a Dark type and I have that immunity on my team. Knockoff is helpful for getting chip damage, but also just getting rid of items like Leftovers or AV, which will help my the rest of my team sweep a lot. So it's really good support mon. Poison Jab hits Tapu Lele really hard, and it hits Lurantis really hard. Earthquake hits Excadrill really hard. It hits Volcanion really hard. It hits Lycanroc. It hits and Garbodor. It hits Garbodor, which I anticipate being an initial switch into this. And then Aqua Tail is my last coverage move. I was debating between Aqua Tail and Iron Tail. Aqua Tail gets very similar coverage and is just slightly more accurate, so I figured I'd go for it. But yeah, this is Max Spadef Drapion, and hopefully puts in some work. It doesn't have recovery, so it can only really tank a few hits. It's a good switch into Slowking, it's a good switch into Volcanion, but really depends on what he brings and how much I need to use this thing to tank hits. But the next one we have is Omastar. Yes, we're bringing Focus Sash Omastar. Now, Omastar, this is really weird. I don't know how to describe it, but the last 2 mods on this team are really, really strange. Omastar, we were running Shell Smash with Focus Sash, Surf, Ice Beam, HP Electric, and the speed is there so that after a Shell Smash, I outspeed Mega Aerodactyl, and I don't think I outspeed Scarf Excadrill though. The special attack is just max, and then the rest goes in defense to help with those physical priority type moves. But yeah, he doesn't have a lot of priority, and if he doesn't have a Scarfer, he doesn't have a lot to take this out after the Shell Smash. But holy cow, does this thing hit hard. After a Shell Smash, we Oko, Tapu Lele, Excadrill, Volcanion, Mega Aerodactyl, Tornadus, Lycanroc. Just the only thing that doesn't really get Oko'd, straight up Oko'd, is Scrafty or Electros or Slowking. And like, that's pretty much it. So this thing hits really hard. If we get the chance to set up on a couple of his physical attackers, that would be great, like Lycanroc or even Excadrill, maybe even Mega Aerodactyl. We tank an Earthquake as well. And even if not, we have the Focus Sash just to do so. I might lead off with this depending on what his team composition is, just to Shell Smash right away, and then put a dent in a couple Mons, and pave the way for some of my other Mons. You'll notice that's kind of like a theme. I've just got like 4 or 5 Mons that can just hit really hard, put holes in their team, put holes in his team to pave the way for the other Mons to just continue plowing through. So, on that note, the next Mon is Infernape, and we've got another Focus Sash Mon. We've got Focus Sash Infernape. You'll notice I don't have any hazard removal, which is scary, but I didn't find a way to put Tapu Fini on this team because, well, it wasn't really a great switch into an offensive Tapu Lele, and I needed that dark type to make the Lele think twice about going for Psychic. But this is pretty much a lead Infernape. I want to get up Stealth Rock. Stealth Rock is super helpful for picking up little bits of damage that help the rest of my team pick up knockouts. Close Combat is there for Excadrill. It's there for Volcanion. It's there for Lycanroc. It's there for Scrafty. Okoing all of those Mons. Well, not all of them. Volcanion, it doesn't Oko. 2 it KOs though. And what doesn't get hit hard by Close Combat gets destroyed by Fire Blast. So Fire Blast does a ton to Tornadus, it does a ton to Electros, it does a ton to Golisopod, it does a ton to Garbodor, and Flare Blitz is just kind of like a little bit of coverage that hits what's really specially defensive, but doesn't want to take but can take a fighting attack. So just to kind of round out the coverage, we got Flare Blitz there, and yeah, I do want to get my Stealth Rock. Our speed is so that we outspeed Tapu Lele, and we've got a Sash, so worst case scenario, we can get up Stealth Rock. If he brings Scarf Drill and wants to go for that, I can Close Combat that turn 1. Yeah, this thing is going to be pretty much get up rocks and put a little bit of dent in him on to gain some momentum, so we force a switch, build up some little bit of chip damage, and yeah, that's the team. So depending on what he brings, maybe lead Omastar, maybe lead Infernape, maybe lead something else, who knows. But it's going to be very offensive. I'm very scared because I don't know how much credit I can give Gary for pretty much making reads, because part of what I'm having the most difficulty with hyper offense is having to play aggressively and having to assume that the opponent knows their best option and then playing aggressively and double switching on that. In a lot of my previous seasons, you've noticed I play very defensively. I choose, the best play. What's the safest play? What's the middle ground? I can take a hit, and then I can gain momentum another time. I can recover up a bit. I don't have that opportunity now. I pretty much have to lose all my momentum or gain a ton of momentum each turn by potentially pulling a double switch and, or just straight up attacking. But I'll hopefully perform during the battle, and I hope you guys check out the battle when that battle does come around. But until then, this has been Midnight Zero, and this mission is complete.